Yeah, this video has been hard to shoot because it's very emotional and it's very important to me, and because my cats are fighting and wrestling and having the time of their lives running underneath my feet constantly the whole video. Sorry. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of the Breakup Cabaret, which features the song So Anyway from the musical Next to Normal. I'm your sad gal pal Lauren Allen, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this week with you. Today is January 29th, I think, and what's in the news today is the convoy that has arrived in Ottawa that's supposedly about freedom, when most of us know that it's not. And I wanted to talk about this as part of my land acknowledgement because, again, I think a land acknowledgement is about placing us in time and space. So I am in what is colonially known as Toronto, and I didn't experience the convoy at all when they drove through here. I can't imagine what people in Ottawa are experiencing right now, that they're all converging on that space. But this convoy is making me really mad because they keep talking about freedom, and it's quite clear that they don't have a concept of what freedom is or isn't. There was a family earlier this week that froze to death in Manitoba trying to cross the border into the United States. And I imagine that that family was dealing with some kind of lack of freedom, that their life was so hard that they chose to risk everything to walk across a frozen prairie landscape. So to have all these people in their trucks doing exactly what they want to do, completely unimpeded, and complaining that their freedom is being taken away is really upsetting to me. And it's also very upsetting to me that our government is just kind of like, yeah, well, whatever, whenever other people protest in much less irritating, much less invasive ways, they come down on them much harder, particularly thinking of the Wet'suwet'en protests that have been ongoing for months. And it's just people trying to save some trees, some very important trees. And their freedoms are constantly being taken away by literally being arrested for protesting. So as I mentioned last week, this is kind of two-part of the same story. So if you haven't seen last week's episode, I would encourage you to go and watch it so that you can get the full context of the story I'm going to tell today. I'm going to be talking about an abusive relationship that I was in. So content warning for this piece is I'm talking about stalking and abuse, emotional mostly. So if you watched last week's episode, you know that I was able to get some distance from my abusive relationship by doing an acting contract in a different city. And this contract allowed me to understand that what was happening in my relationship wasn't okay. And it was just little reminders that I got that reinforced to me that something wasn't right. I'm really grateful for one of my friends who one day simply said, "Your boyfriend isn't supposed to make you cry every day." And I was like, wow, what a concept. That seems like it's probably very true. And something that I've found super helpful in my experiences with abuse and just emotional dysregulation and being gaslit to the point that I don't understand my own reality, having those little phrases is super helpful because they're uncomplicated and they're really hard to argue with. Like, I'm not gonna come back and say like, oh, no, my boyfriend should be making me cry every day. Like, that sounds ridiculous, right? And it also helps to talk to myself as if I was talking to a friend. And so I remember this friend and the way she spoke so kindly to me, and with that gentle reminder, told me that I deserved better. But the connection that this story has to this song is about leaving. And leaving an abusive relationship is the most dangerous point in that relationship. My cats are gonna wrestle in the background this entire video. There's nothing I can do about it, sorry. When someone tries to leave an abusive relationship, the abuser tends to escalate their behavior. And that is what happened to me. So I was on this contract, I was having a great time. For the first time in so many months, I actually was really happy. And I had friends. And this was driving my boyfriend crazy because usually when I was living in town with him, he did not allow me to have friends. There were set times where I had to be home. If I didn't check in with him every 10 to 20 minutes, he would get very upset and he would be very withholding. And that was the hardest part, was like having to live in a space with someone who refuses to talk to you. Sometimes for days at a time, he wouldn't talk to me because of things that I had done that he perceived as wrong, like staying out too late, talking to someone he didn't like, not doing the dishes, those kinds of things. When I finally got up the courage to leave this person, it was because he picked a fight with me for like the 8th day in a row. And he was fighting with me because I had been out with my friends the night before, having fun, and he didn't think that I was being safe. That's what he claimed, anyway. And I had all of these arguments prepared. Like, I was with 20 people that I knew. We walked. Nobody was driving. You know, it's a place I've been to before. I'm with people that I work with, that I live with, who will know right away if something happens to me. Like, I didn't know how else to explain that I was being responsible and I was doing the things that he wanted me to do. And I just had this realization that, like, it wasn't okay for him to be picking these fights with me and be upset with me about my behavior every single day. And I decided in a moment that had been brewing for a long time that I was going to leave him. And that was a terrifying realization because I knew that there were going to be consequences. Not just the regular, like, I'm breaking up with someone, it's going to be heartbreaking, we're all going to be very sad. It was like, I am in danger by doing this. I also saw so clearly that if I didn't break up with him right in that moment, when I had the courage and I had the resources, I had the people around me to support me, I knew that if I didn't do it right then, I wouldn't do it. And I could see this future that he'd been planning for us, where we lived on an acreage and we had kids, which is something that I've never wanted. But he convinced me that I would want those things, right? And I could see our future in 15 years, me being incredibly unhappy, finally asking for a divorce. And I didn't want that. I didn't want to go through 15 more years of heartache and pain. And then, of course, he understood that I was having this realization because I was finally standing up to him. So he started ignoring my texts and calls. And eventually, I just left him a voicemail saying that our relationship was over. And he immediately called me back and told me that he had thrown up when I told him that he was at work. And it was, how dare I do this to him? And I held firm and I said, no, I don't want the future that you've been planning for us. I don't want this relationship anymore. When I'm done with my contract, I will come to the house that we're sharing and I will pick up my things. And that's when his behavior started to escalate and it got really erratic. So first he contacted my friends and acted like I was having some kind of nervous breakdown and like I didn't break up with him. He would say things like, I think something's wrong with Laura and I'm really worried about her. She's not responding to me. Can you check on her? Only my female friends. And of course they were worried. And they didn't really know him because he had no interest in my friends. So it was very bizarre to have my friends reaching out to me being like, hey, are you okay? Your boyfriend's really worried, and having to explain to them that he wasn't my boyfriend anymore, that I had broken up with him. And then he deleted my phone number, but decided to email me every day. When I went to his house to collect my things, I brought my dad and my brother because I didn't want to be alone with him. And that was a smart choice because as soon as I got into the house, he got on his knees and started begging me to stay. And he was in a bathrobe and he looked completely disheveled. And it was really awful. And I just got my things as fast as I could and I got out of there. I abandoned a bunch of stuff. I had some furniture in storage with him that I just left. And when I was leaving, I handed him a check for the rent that I owed him. And he cried and he said, I don't want your money. I don't need your money. And I said, I don't want you to have a reason to contact me ever again. And that check was cashed the very next day. And even after I took all my things and moved out of the house, he was still emailing me, and I kept asking him to stop. I kept telling him to leave me alone. We'd broken up a couple of times before, and I knew that he was so good at manipulating me that if I kept contact with him in any way, there was a chance that I would be sucked back in. And I so didn't want that. And it took so much for me to stay firm in that. And then he made a website about me, about how much he loved me, about how beautiful my singing voice was, something that he'd never told me in the course of our relationship. He used photos of me that I knew he had taken them, but I'd never seen them before, and I found them really unflattering. And I finally told him that if he didn't stop contacting me, I was going to have to call the police. And he did, because ultimately he cared about himself. It wasn't about me. So, but it was really scary. Because this person had had so much access to my life for so long, I felt like I wasn't in control. It was so hard to set that boundary and to say, no, I don't actually want you here anymore. But I did it. The average person in an abusive relationship will take 7 or more times to leave that relationship, because abuse is a cycle. There are times when it's really good, and there are times when it's really bad. And a lot of people can get sucked in by false promises and flattery. I also was remembering this week that 1 in 13 people in the United States will at some point be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. This is so common. This is such a common experience. I'm sure that many people are watching this video going, yeah, this reminds me of this person in my life. So I'm sharing this because leaving someone is so hard and it is dangerous. And I'm so proud of every single person who has ever found that courage within themselves to leave somebody. I applaud you. I really do. This song is not about an abuse situation, but it is about a really unhealthy dynamic. And the thing that I love about So Anyway is that Diane has so much empathy for her partner, but she still chooses herself. And I wish I had understood that I could do that and that I should do that when I was younger. Because choosing myself the past few months, I don't think I've even been doing it for years, but choosing myself for the past few months has been really eye-opening and game-changing, and it's helped me to say, these are my needs, and they deserve to be met. Something very powerful about Next to Normal is that it depicts a woman who has a severe mental illness. And it was so exciting to me to see this show and to know that she was still a full person, even though she was dealing with really intense psychological things. I think that representation is very important. I needed to see myself represented. And this is the first show that kind of did that for me. I saw it when I was 18. I was auditioning for Juilliard in San Francisco because I was like, I'm amazing. They spent the entire audition saying, Saskatoon? Saskatchewan? They didn't really care about my acting, but that's okay. I hope that this video and this song encourages you to choose yourself and reminds you that you deserve better. and that leaving is really hard and you don't have to do it alone. I have some resources linked below for anybody who needs support in leaving an abusive situation. I hope you enjoy this song. We'll see you next time. I wanted to say thank you to everyone who has reached out and thanked me after watching episode 1. I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. That's why I'm doing this, because I think this is really important, and it excites me, and musical theater makes me happy. So I'm really grateful that I have the opportunity to make this show, this thing, this web series, whatever this is. And it only matters if you enjoy it. So thank you. So anyway, I'm leaving. I thought you'd like to know. You're faithful, come what may, but clearly I can't stay. We'd both go mad that way. So here I go. And anyway, I'm leaving. I guess that you can see I'll try this on my own, a life I've never known. I'll face the dread alone, but I'll be free. With you always beside me, to catch me when I fall. I'd never get to know the feel of solid ground at all. With you always believing that we could still come through, it makes me feel the fool to know that it's not true. What doctors call dysfunction, we tried to call romance. And true, it's quite a trick to tell the dancer from the dance. But rather than the chance take me, I'll take a chance. I'll take a chance on leaving. It's that or stay and die. I loved you once, and though you love me still, I know it's time for me to fly. I loved you once, and though I love you still, I know it's time for me to go.